So I'm Mark. For those of you that don't know me, I have a background firstly in journalism. So I spent a number of years at the Sunday Times of London as a business journalist, writing about leisure amongst other things. Then I edited a publication in the UK called MCA, which some of you will know. And then for the last 8 years, I've been a partner at Fleet Street Communications. Got to know Be At One firstly as a journalist. Loved it, thought it was a fantastic business, fantastic model, and then had the opportunity to work with Rhys and his two co-founders for a couple of years up to the exit to Stonegate in 2018. 18 months ago, for a reported £50 million. But that number's never been confirmed, has it?
I can confirm that number.
Okay, there we have it. So I've just got a couple of slides to run through. Just for those of you that don't know the business, is this working? Can we go to the slide guy? I'm not sure I can get this. Well, let's start, and we'll let the slides catch up. So, firstly, tell us what you're up to, and tell us about your co-founders and what led you to start the business.
So we started in May 1998. I met my two colleagues at TGI Fridays in the early 90s when it was when Fridays was really still new in the UK, and it changed the business, changed the landscape of hospitality in the UK when it came.
Yeah. And it was all about drinks.
It was all about drinks. Fridays
and food.
Fridays was it was the first place in the UK to have professional bartenders. And it changed the industry.
And it was about that energy that the bar brought. And Lee, one of your co-founders, was...
Yeah, so Lee was world champion Fridays bartender in '96. And Steve and I were both trainers and opening staff.
And why did you create Be At One?
So it came to a point, we were at Fridays for about 6 years, and it came to a point where we just got to have a go ourselves. It was, we'd been there 5 years, and if we didn't try it, we'd always regret it.
And how old were you?
25.
25. And the other two similar age?
Similar, yeah.
And what did you want to create?
Well, Fridays we had a great time at Fridays, but it was turning into something different, and we just wanted to create the Fridays bar effectively, but without the Americana. So it was all about the professional bartenders, free pouring, and the personalities and the people.
So, slides have caught up. So this is just a brief intro to the business for those of you that don't know it. So, £60,000, €70,000. What was that?
So that was our initial investment right at the beginning. The banks, when we approached the banks originally, they laughed at us. They wouldn't give money to bartenders to open a bar. That was just ridiculous. However, they would give us car loans.
Okay.
And the 60,000, that's 4 car loans and a handful of credit cards.
And what car were you going to buy, as far as the bank was concerned?
It was a Renault Clio, actually.
Renault Clio, very nice. 20s, this is a 20-year journey from opening the number one bar to exit to Stonegate at 50 million. Tell us about 5, 60, 30.
So this was really a service standard that we tried to aspire to. We wouldn't always get to this, but Be At One, it's a cocktail bar, but really it's about people, and it's about the staff, but also the customer, and having that engagement. So it's 5-second greeting, 60 seconds to make the drink, and 30 seconds to complete the transaction. And making sure the customer feels welcome, is engaged, and greeted, and can relax. And that's absolutely vital.
And this is a mantra that you just stuck with, wasn't it? And I remember when we were researching the business ahead of working with you on comms, going to Wellington Street at 5 o'clock on a Monday evening, and there were about 5 other people in there. Yeah. But you could just see this living, and the atmosphere that was being generated by the 3 people behind the bar was just fantastic.
It's making that environment friendly, obviously, but enabling people to relax and not want to stand out, and engaging with them as soon as they come in.
Yeah, great. 70%.
So when we sold the business, we were doing around about 42 million turnover, and 70% of our turnover is cocktails.
Cocktails. Wow, that sounds nice. Funnily enough, 0 is for food.
No food at all.
Quite strange at a restaurant conference. I guess there's lots of commonality, but But you tried food, didn't you? But
We tried food a couple of times, but that was one of the successes of the business, that there's a whole section of P&L that doesn't exist. So, there was no waste, nothing went in the bin. There's no chefs, of course, there's no extract, there's no gas bill, there's no, all those things that when it's quiet, still sting you with costs. We just didn't have any of those.
but you tried it at site number 2, didn't you?
The first site went really well. I think something that the guys were saying earlier. The first site went really well, and because it went so well, we just thought it was easy.
Yeah.
So let's
Bit
have
of God complex.
Let's have something 3 times the size with 3 times the rent, and let's put a restaurant in there, and let's open all day.
And what happened?
Wrong.
And it almost took you under, didn't it?
And so the second one was losing everything that the first one was making.
Okay. And what does that, because that was also in southwest London,
Yeah, that was
sort of Clapham Battersea area.
It was in Wandsworth, but
Okay.
no need to. We made a whole host of mistakes, the example is that particular site that we had is now at Gales, and that Gales is paying £20,000 less rent now than we were paying 20 years ago.
Wow. Okay, 9. Tell us what that is. It's the weeks.
That's the bartender training. So every member of staff was full-time. There's no part-time staff at all. But so we had a training course. They'd do a week's orientation, and then they'd do 4 weeks in site, and then 4 weeks classroom bartender training. And everybody had to be certified. And it wasn't just about the drinks. People can learn recipes, but you need to understand how to make the drinks, obviously, but also how to stand, how to talk. And how to
free pour.
Yeah, but some people, also need to tie the shirt up and have a shave, or excuse me, and how to present themselves and how to talk to people. And actually, because some people, when you're trying to interact with the customer, some of the staff find that difficult.
Yeah.
And it's actually trying to help them relax as well.
And that 9 weeks, that's the longest I've ever heard of that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
that was ultimately, hiring the right people and training them is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And the USP. And the 9 weeks is very expensive, but, we had a pretty low turnover rate of
and that supported the service standard of the 5, 60, 30?
It was everything.
Okay. 5 p.m., that's just, it was a one-shift business. Most of the bars opened at 4, 5 p.m.
That's right. So because we didn't do any food, we just opened at night, and it was kept the business simple.
When you sold, it was run rate 42 million revenue pounds, so about 50 million euro.
32 sites.
Yeah.
When we sold.
And about half of those were in London. And then you started to stretch the legs of the brand, hadn't you?
We were from Leeds to Bournemouth by that point.
Okay. Tell us about 1,000 square feet.
Well, that was really a sweet spot for the amount for the trading floor.
Yeah.
How big? We had sites between 600 square foot and 5,000 square foot, but we could have a bar of 1,000 square foot, Spitalfields, for example, and we could do 40,000 a week out of a bar that size.
And at that, so you were generating about £2 million of revenue a year, converting at over 30%.
Yeah. So make 600,000 or 700,000. When you really hit the sweet spot, it was very, very, very successful.
And then £50 or 60 euros, that is the revenue per labour hour.
That's right.
In this business.
That's right. And that's down to a lot of things, but mainly training, ergonomics of the bar, and the right people.
Yeah. So, as ever at these events, time is against us. So let's move forward. You opened, second site didn't work, but then you got back to what Be At One was about. You opened some more sites, and then around site number 6, 7, you opened Putney.
Yeah. So the site number 6 was in Putney, and that really went off big time, and it enabled us. It gave us a revenue that enabled us to stop working in the business, and we could start working on the business.
So you started to professionalise, started to recruit people.
We hired an operations manager at that point, and we started to create the head office function. We'd done all of it ourselves until that point.
Yeah.
And it was a turning point for us, and we were able then to crack on, and the banks at that point, the banks were on side.
Okay, and then you got some grey hairs in the boardroom. You met Mark Derry, and he came on board. Tell us about that.
So Mark Derry was our chairman. We'd met him at Fridays, We'd known him quite. He was our chairman in the pub really for a while before that,
And he was the CEO of Lockfine. He'd worked at Whitbread.
Right.
Then he went to Brasserie Blanc.
That's right. And that's right. He has Brasserie Blanc and the White Brasserie Company now, which is doing great guns. It was the real turning point for that was when the recession came, 2008, 2009. We had a decent relationship with the bank, but it was with RBS, and of course, at that point, they nearly went bust. Of course,
they had a few issues.
Yeah, a few issues, and they didn't want to lend to our industry. Was we're just not going to give you any more.
So they were just closed for business.
Yeah, closed for business. And so it came. We had talked about private equity at that point, but we needed to do something different at that point because we couldn't raise any more funds. And
but Mark understood that private equity world.
That's right. We engaged with Mark, and he pointed us in the right direction. We appointed advisors, and we did a parade of private equity firms. We had 8 offers, which was great.
But it was because you met Piper, who you ended up investing with.
Yeah.
A couple of years previously, didn't you?
Piper were proactive in coming to see us, and I guess when we had 10 sites, that was probably a real sweet spot for them at the time.
Yeah.
And we'd met them and spoken with them, but the catalyst for when the recession came, that was a catalyst for us to really engage with them and others.
Yeah.
And then once we'd come to an arrangement with them, we did the deal in 2011, and Mark came on board formally, along with a couple of the guys from Piper.
And you had 8 offers. You went with Piper. Why?
Well, Piper, they got it really. I mean, I know Yasha from Piper's here, of course, but I'm complimentary to Piper because they let us get on with it.
Yeah.
And obviously they've got their metrics, but we made a couple of mistakes right at the beginning. But they didn't kick us too hard for it. And then once we got to grips with the new world, they helped us, and it was a good relationship that sustained. Because, of course, with the Brexit vote, when we came to exit, it didn't quite go to plan.
So the original time frame was around 2011 to 2016.
Yeah, 5 years for those guys. But it ended up being 7. But they were, they got it. They didn't shout about it. They understood, and were on the ride with us.
Yeah. And so it got to 2016, not the right time to exit. The Brexit vote happened. Yeah. UK went a bit mad. Delayed things for a year, 2 years?
That's right. At the same time when we were doing the IM, there was Brexit happening at the same time, but we thought, well, we have the Brexit vote because we won't leave Europe, will we? We'll just let the vote happen and then we can go to market straight after. Obviously, the wheels came off there, but we'd already done the work, so we went to market and without success. But at the same time, we were also talking to the banks, and we managed to refinance. And we moved to Santander, and in fact, we got quite a lot more of a war chest to open to go again. And Stonegate then came back and were interested again, but we were on the way to opening probably another 5 or 6 sites.
Yeah.
And to crack on again. So we weren't in a rush to sell, and Piper got it. There was no pressure from those guys.
So they were happy to support. The business was doing well.
The business was going well. The like-for-likes were +7, and year on year was probably +25, +30, and so it's.
But there was real momentum in the business.
There was real momentum in the business. We had a good management team, and people keep drinking in the UK. It's an easy thing to say, but with the experiential thing that's going on now, Beer One was providing that experience. It's about the bartenders and the people engaging with the customer and getting them involved and feeling like they're part of it, and that is an experience in itself. And I actually thinking back, that's what we were doing.
And I know down the years you sort of kept dabbling a little bit with food. And there was the casual dining boom, sort of 2010, 11 onwards. Yeah. But you never went back to food. You just left it to other people. And
well, we did try it one more time when we opened in the city, and we completely screwed it up. I mean, we just, why sell food? I mean, what's wrong with you? Why would you do that?
And you didn't sell food, so you could sell more drinks.
No. if we don't do any food, then that leaves more room to sell more drinks.
Yeah.
And especially with casual dinings, and when there were so many people doing good food, you had to be brilliant. If you weren't brilliant at it, there's just no point in bothering. So,
and investors, Piper and advisors weren't saying you must do food or how.
Well, Piper, in those 10 years ago or so, having a wet-led late night business was really a dirty word, and we weren't. For an investor to be interested in that sector was unusual. Yeah. But Piper, in the cycle, casual dining, and then also the wet. It was really an expectation that the wet-led thing would come back, which it has done more so now, especially with pubs. And so there was an understanding that stick to what you're good at.
Yeah.
And
that was what always struck me about Be At One. You're always very clear about stick to what we're good at.
Yeah.
One drink at a time. Is everyone having a good time in the four walls? Yeah. Is it fantastic? Does everyone know what they're doing?
I mean, stick to what you're good at. I mean, there's no point, you can't worry about what other people are doing or, what your competitors do. And you've just got to make sure that every drink is perfect. You're serving one guest at a time, each and every time, and looking after the people. It is a cocktail bar, but it's all about the people.
Yeah.
It's all about the people and the environment.
One of the other things which struck me was the partnership between you, Steve, and Lee. And I'm sure you disagreed. I'm sure you didn't always agree on everything. But it always struck me as you were always quite tight and you were always aligned.
Well, we didn't always get on. There's a few stories, but we'd always have it out. And we were friends before, and we're still friends now. But if we disagreed, we would close the door and sit around the table, and we would have it out. We would shout, and we would row, and we would swear at each other, and then we'd have it out, and then we'd go and have a drink, and then we would start working. And that really, the longevity of the business was down to the communication between the three of us of, we would swear and shout and have it out, and then we'll move on. But we were always going in the same direction. There was never any doubt as to, what the business was for and what it was going to do. And, the three of us and all the head office, we were there to help the people sell more drinks.
Yeah. And that was it's about selling more drinks. That was kind of making the boat go faster.
That's it.
Will it help us sell more?
That's right. And if you weren't helping sell more drinks, then you just didn't need to be there.
Okay. So tell us about the exit. You grew this business over 20 years. You sold to a trade player. Your role was effectively you stepped away. Was that difficult?
The last couple of years were quite hard work. It was important to really, for any buyer, that the three of us had gone and made ourselves redundant.
Yeah. But you'd done that effectively over 2 or 3 years by putting another layer of management team. You had a managing director.
Yeah, and Andrew Stones, who was then the MD, it was his team, and we were backing him, and it was all about us helping him and him taking the business forward. And when we sold the business, everybody left. So Steve Lee and I left, Mark, the chairman, left, Piper left.
Yeah.
One day, it was over. Quite an odd experience, but none of us stuck around. There was no retention. There was,
Presumably, you could have rolled to another PE firm, but you sold to Stonegate. Why did you decide you weren't going to go again? You were ready to do something else.
20 years. I don't. It was a significant. When we'd finished, it was a significant turnover, and that was fun. It enabled you to do new things or try new things. And I miss the people and having those opportunities. But the late night frontline business itself, I don't really miss. Yeah. Not at the minute. Maybe at some point, maybe.
And what are the three of you doing now?
So Lee, one of my guys he's sitting on a beach in Costa Rica. He moved to Central America.
He said he was going to do it, and he did it.
For those of you who've met him, you won't be surprised by that. He'll be back.
Lee was kind of the soul of the business in a way, because he was the one that was the flair champion.
He was the shouty one. And,
shouty one.
Ex-world champion bartender, but he was the guy you wanted on point. And like I say, everything else is academic. It's all about selling drinks, and he was the man about selling drinks.
Steve's gone again. He's opened
his own place near Covent Garden, Holborn. He was keen to get back to the coalface, and we're not,
And what are you doing?
I've invested, I needed a break, frankly, but I've invested in in a restaurant and a pre-batch cocktail business and a bit of a tech thing. I'm also doing some property, but I think, I'm not doing the day job, so I think it's, give it time.
Okay, and tell us about your investments in this sector. You've invested in Baba Boom. What's that?
Baba Boom, which is a kind of a modern kebab restaurant, which I really like. Got 2 sites at the minute. She's just crowdfunded and got double what she wanted, so I think that'll be interesting. Great, great environment, but the food is just brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's always busy, which I really like.
It's a good product.
Great product. And I think obviously there's a risk there, obviously, but she will die trying.
Yeah.
And that's you can't ask for any more.
And then you're in Vagabond as well?
Vagabond, that's right, which is a modern wine bar. I think, the history of wine bars goes back a long way in the UK, and I think a modern wine bar is exactly what's needed. So I'm not involved in that. I've just invested in that.
And they've just opened in Monument, haven't they?
Great site in Monument.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Okay. Yeah. And then pre-batch cocktails.
I think that pre-batch cocktails and draft cocktails are something, particularly in the UK, that are becoming bigger and bigger. Be at one, we never used pre-batch ever. We made every single drink fresh every single time.
Yeah.
But that's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And the system the guy's got is creating a great product, and he needs some help back of house. But the product and the product he's got is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The latest thing they've just gone in on draft Negroni at Alan Yau's new place in South Kensington. I haven't been, but that's an example of the quality of the product he's got. It's really
fantastic. And then final question from me, because of time, and then we'll see if we've got any questions from you. What have you learnt?
Well, what have I learned? Everything and nothing. Ultimately, it's about people and having a good time. And, we talk about all these new things, all these things happening, but it's still the same. It's just, people want to have a good time. They want to relax and come out and spend. And it's just making that journey easy.
Yeah.
I knew that before, and it's an easy thing to say, but it's just as true now as it ever was.
Yeah.
And it was interesting listening to Jeremy yesterday. It's how you make people feel.
Yeah.
It's not about the drinks. It's not about the food. It's about the people and the environment. And if they have a good time, they will spend the money and they will come back and tell their friends. And that's it.
Yeah. And you care about the atmosphere. Yeah. And if we heard that yesterday, if the atmosphere is good, the revenue will be okay.
Yeah, and the revenue will follow. That's right.
And when we were chatting about this, I remember you saying you're still amazed at how many places, huge fit out, massive sites, and you go in and it's just not there. It's not right.
When we find a site, or when we'd find a site, we'd find it and we'd work through the paperwork to secure it. But we're already thinking about who's going to run it and how many people we're going to get. And as soon as we sign on the dotted line, the staff are employed and they start training. So during the fit out, so we've done the night. They've been with the company for 2 or 3 months before it opens.
Yeah.
And so the business is up and running.
They're not practicing on the customer.
No.
Yeah. Okay, the clock's in the red. Do we have any questions? Would anyone like to ask Rhys a question? No, we're going to be around for the rest of the morning. So if you want to grab Rhys in the coffee break, please do. We're going to leave it there and hand back to John. Thank you.
Thank you.